If it's all right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And what I would like to talk to you about today is quite honestly born of a very difficult experience that I've been through. And I would like to share a little bit of that experience with you as well. But since some of you may not know me, I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. I was not raised Seventh-day Adventist, and I have often told people who were raised Seventh-day Adventists that I feel sorry for you. And the reason I say that is because this is such a precious message, and many people just don't realize what they have. And many Adventists have walked away or held it loosely. But when I found this message, I grabbed it with both hands. Praise God. And I consider it a privilege that God allowed me to see this truth. And it's precious to me. I grew up on a farm in East Central Alabama. And if you've heard of Uchee Pines Institute, my parents' farm joined Uchee Pines. And we thought they were the strangest people on the planet. And, but as a kid, I would ride my horse over there and give the kids at Uchee a ride on my horse, and I would talk to the parents. And then eventually I took guitar lessons from Doctors Agatha and Calvin Thrash's daughter, Anne. And so I became very good friends with them. And when I moved from home, I took Bible studies from Anne and was baptized. And eventually I moved to Uchee, took all of the training there, and then I traveled and spoke with Dr. Agatha for, I don't know, maybe a year. And then I taught there, I think, for about 3 years after I took all of their training and everything. When I left Uchee, I continued in my nursing career. I'm an RN by training, and I've always had an interest in health. I was the community kid that everybody would call to take their dog's stitches out or check their paw or whatever. So I've always had an interest in health and well-being. And when I found the health message, it just fascinated me. And so I kind of stayed in the natural remedies, but I was back and forth between my nursing career and natural remedies. But in 2003, I moved to Kentucky with some friends of mine. We were going to actually start a health institute. And my best friend died with breast cancer. And she died in my arms. I was holding her up in bed so she wouldn't choke she was having secretions come up. And that impacted me so deeply. And she had breast cancer, but it metastasized to her liver. And I think that's where this whole understanding of the importance of care of the liver really was born within my heart. And it just sort of stayed there and grew and nurtured for a while. I had not really been using a computer much, so I didn't have at my fingertips all of the research that I have now. But when I got that, I became an avid researcher. I started doing full-time medical missionary work in 2010, and I've been full-time a self-supporting gospel medical missionary since that time. And I married my husband in 2012, moved to North Dakota, and this is where things really started to get interesting for me as far as medical missionary work. And why, you see, whenever you have a life-threatening illness and you have a decision to make between, should I go the conventional, do I go to the doctor and get medications, or do I trust God? It puts you at a crossroad that really tests your mettle and really tests your character and your faith in God. And that's what happened to me. And it happened to me kind of fourfold in a way. I had 2 significant head injuries when I was in North Dakota. And if you're not aware of the fact that when you have a head injury, it actually makes your blood-brain barrier leaky. And if your blood-brain barrier becomes leaky, your gut barrier also becomes leaky. They kind of go together. And so I had the two head injuries, and then when we moved down here, we moved into a house that was infested with mold, and we didn't know it whenever we rented the place, but whenever we moved there, we realized we had an issue. And if we'll talk about mold a little bit more when we get into my slides and stuff, I just kind of want to give you a little bit of background as to what led me to focus so much on the liver and to realize how important it is and how neglected it is. And I believe that God allowed me to experience the things that I did because we as a people need to understand more about the liver because of the toxins that are in our environment right now. Am I loud enough? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you. Well, at least I do. Guys, feel free to say in the comments if you have any problems hearing the speaker. But so far, I can hear.
Because I'm not focusing on the comments. I'm just trying to kind of keep my train of thought. I just wanted to make sure everybody could hear me because on another Zoom platform, I wasn't heard well. At any rate, after we had the mold issue, I'm kind of a workaholic in that I tend to be intemperate in work. I like to work and accomplish things. And my husband and I had a farm and we were building our house and I ruined my hands. I would hold the sander for like 5-6 hours at a time, sanding cabinets and things. And I really ruined my hands. And I've ended up, I had 5 hand surgeries because I was fairly aggressive with natural remedies, but I wasn't able to get over the hump because I was still working. I wasn't able to stop and really let my hands rest. Well, that was sort of the beginning. Then in August of 2018, my cat scratched me and I got tetanus. Now, tetanus typically doesn't come from cat scratches, but it was a very significant, very deep scratch. And my husband and I were taking high-dose vitamin C at the time. We were doing a heavy metal detox that I had learned about. I had researched and learned about it. And I learned later from Dr. Suzanne Humphreys that high-dose vitamin C will prevent tetanus from running its full course. In other words, it will keep it at bay. And if you don't know anything about tetanus, it's caused from the Clostridium tetani bacteria, which is an anaerobic bacteria. And when the cat scratched me, I used my natural remedies. I went in the house, I made it bleed, I washed it thoroughly, and then I put pine sap on it, which pine sap is an excellent remedy. And I won't get into all of the uses of pine sap, but it is an excellent remedy, but I cannot and do not recommend it for any kind of animal injury, like a bite or a scratch or anything like that, or any puncture wound, because it will seal it shut. And apparently that's what happened was I sealed some bacteria in there and I ended up with tetanus. That was a journey. I was on oxygen for about, I think 2 months because the bacteria did progress enough that it damaged the muscles in my intercostal muscles and I couldn't lift my chest wall adequately. So I was on oxygen for a while. Okay, that was August 2018. And then January of 2019, I developed Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And I was very sick. And I didn't know why. I thought I just had the flu or something. And then I found a tick on my hip. And it had made a crater, a necrotic crater. The tissue where the tick was still embedded had died. And so we did a tick panel, and sure enough, I had the Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Now, at this time, I was kind of weary of all of this health stuff, and the physician that did the test for me suggested doxycycline. So I did take the antibiotic and it did mess up my gut. But the doxycycline does not deal with any kind of co-infection or anything like that. And I did have some of the co-infections that go along with Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And then we ended up having to sell our farm for health reasons and some other reasons as well. And we rented another house, and that house, it had some of the most deadly mold toxins in it. Stachybotrys, if you're familiar with any of the mold toxins, Stachybotrys, Wallemia, Aspergilis, I think it's Chaetomium. There were 5 that were in that house because I did do the test, and I ended up so sick. I did not think I was going to survive, and it developed in me a condition called chronic inflammatory response syndrome, and it also triggered autoimmunity. So I had all these things going on. I had brain fog, just terrible chest pain, hard to breathe, muscle pain, just I thought I was just going to fall apart. I didn't think I was going to survive this thing. And to research all this and figure out what was going on and how to deal with it was very difficult with the brain fog that I was experiencing. And so all of these things have led me to realize the path of healing that I had to take to get well involved a lot of support for the liver, because mold toxins particularly really clog up the liver. So I want to move on into my slides now, and I'll just completely focus on the liver talk right now, and then I'll just sort of intersperse some testimony along with this on my journey. So if you think about the liver, everything that you wear, if you look at this clothing here, it's got flame retardants in it. Well, that goes in through your skin. Wash your clothes when you get it. Don't just get something from the store and start wearing it. It needs to be washed, and that it actually can take some time for that stuff to wash off. So even I have actually walked into like a department store or something, and the chemical smell in the store has been so bad it's given me a headache, made me dizzy. So these are very real things. Your liver has to deal with that. Anything you inhale, any odor, anything that you eat out of. Now, if you eat out of styrofoam, that's a bad thing, I'll tell you, because especially if your food is hot, that goes right, the chemicals in that styrofoam go right into your food. And your liver has to deal with that, has to detoxify that. Standing at the gas pump, pumping gas, your liver has to deal with the gas fumes that you're inhaling. Anything that you put on your skin, anything that you inhale, anything that goes in your mouth, your liver has to deal with and detoxify. Now, a lot of these toxins that are in our environment, the pesticides, the plastics, all these things contain what's called, you see it here, xenoestrogens. Now that prefix xeno means foreign. So these are foreign estrogens. So these xenoestrogens go into our body and they totally goof up our hormones, and they're not nice. They're not polite like the hormones that God gave us, that estradiol and all these things. They're bullies, and they go in and they bind up our estrogen sites, and this is where a lot of ladies are estrogen dominant, and they develop these estrogen dominant cancers, breast cancers. And also another thing that I learned not too long ago is that if we're estrogen dominant, it can cause our bile ducts, and we'll talk more about this a little bit later in the talk, it can cause the bile ducts to constrict so that our liver cannot, the bile cannot flow out. And again, we'll talk about it later, but the bile is one of the ways that our liver eliminates toxins. So this is a very dangerous thing when we have these xenoestrogens in our body. Of course, this guy is spraying pesticide. My husband used to be in the insect, what do they call it, pest control business. And when I first married him, he would have on just a long sleeve shirt and then some kind of respirator thing, and he'd be standing with a wand looking thing like this and just spraying a house, standing in this cloud of pesticide. Nothing on his head. He had gloves on. But that stuff goes through your clothing, and it was going, I know it was going through his scalp and everything. So when I married my husband, I wanted to take his liver out and put it on a washboard. I mean, that's how I knew he was toxic. Any kind of fast food wrappers or shiny type of paper, even these paper bowls that have the shiny lining in it, that shiny lining is not good for you. That's toxin that your liver has to deal with. 4,000 chemicals in cigarette smoke, which I know nobody here smokes, but I can be sitting in my car with the windows up in traffic and I can smell the cigarette smoke of the person in the car next to me. I mean, this stuff is nasty. And then there's formaldehydes and things in carpets that outgas from building materials. Our liver has to deal with all of this stuff. Sugar is one of the worst things that we can do to our livers. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. And then you see the foods sewn together there, that represents GMO, genetically modified. We'll talk about that as well. Anybody here use scented candles? Please tell me no. You all diffuse essential oils, right? I don't hear you. I'm interactive. I need some response.
Uh-oh. I'm pretty sure there are a few of us that use
me
those
wearing
kinds of
handcuffs, because I like to ask questions and really interact with people when I'm talking. I feel like I'm just sitting here talking to myself. So Zoom is a challenge for me, but I want to do the best. I want to help you guys. But whenever we think about all of the toxins in our environment, we can kind of feel like this lone soldier on the field with these horses charging at us. It can be very overwhelming, but there are a lot of things that God has given us in nature, in natural remedies that we can do to support our liver, but we have to know about it. And most of us, I talk to people every day that are vegetarian, that are health reformers. They follow the 8 laws of health and they're still sick and they don't know why. And, I want to help people to understand why. A lot of it has to do with, I'm sure probably most of you have heard about leaky gut. That's a huge factor. And I really appreciate what Mercy Ballard and Dr. Joyce Cha are doing on the autoimmunity side, dealing with leaky gut and dietary changes and things. That's vital. It's very important. And it's good for me because I can just point people over there and I don't have to deal with that aspect. I can just tell them to go get that cookbook or what have you. But when it comes to the liver, I really feel like there needs to be, and I'm praying about this, y'all pray with me, because I'm considering doing a series, a little class series that will kind of expand on what we're doing now. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's more qualified than me, but somebody's got to do it. Okay, the title of this talk is actually called Love Your Liver, and it is on our YouTube channel, which is under my name. I have lemons there because, as most of you probably know, the liver and lemons are lovers. The liver is very much benefited by lemons. If you drink in the mornings, if you put the juice of a lemon in your water, you're alkalinizing your system, you're increasing your bile flow. It's very supportive to detoxifying the liver. Now, we are told, Healthful Living, page 15, that we are to study the marvelous organ. Okay, I've got all of these pictures here and I can't see. Okay. The marvelous organism, the human system, and the laws by which it's governed. So that's what we're going to do a little bit this evening. And in the same book, Healthful Living, page 14, we are to become acquainted with the wonderful human organism, the bones, muscles, stomach, liver, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, bowels, heart, and pores of the skin, and to understand the dependence of one organ upon another for the healthful action of all is a study in which most mothers take no interest. Now, if it was important enough that she said most mothers take no interest, then it's obvious we need to take an interest in studying these things and how they work together. We need every one of these things to study. But what I have run into almost across the board is that everybody I talk to, they never think about the liver and cleaning their liver. Okay, the liver's located, as you probably know, in the upper right-hand part of the abdominal cavity. It's kind of tucked up under the diaphragm, sitting on top of the stomach and right kidney and intestines, and most of it is covered by the rib cage. Some of it is exposed, but most of it is covered. It's about a 3-pound organ. Of course, I'm just barely 100 pounds, so mine's not going to be as big as my husband's, obviously. The liver gets about 25% of the blood from every single heartbeat, so that tells you how important this organ really is. Now, the liver, now this, I'm really simplifying things here. So, just if you're more highly educated, just bear with my simplicity because I'm trying to make this so that everybody can understand. Okay, there's three main functions of the liver. It's a storage plant. One of the main things we know of that it stores is glycogen. It's a processing plant, and it's a manufacturing plant. It actually makes many of the hormones and things in our body. And of course, it processes all the things as we talked about earlier. The liver holds about 13% or about a pint of the body's blood supply at any given moment. It has two main lobes. Some people argue that there's three lobes, but I'm not going to get into that one. And even this third point fascinates me because I see the signature of God in this. Even if 75% of your liver is damaged, you may have no symptoms. And so just because you may be sitting here thinking, I'm fine, I have no problem, doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. Okay? But God made the liver so that it can regenerate, and that's a very good thing because we tend to damage it so much. Okay. This is just to, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, just to kind of give you an idea of how everything hooks up with the bile ducts and the gallbladder and the small bowel and everything. And then I really like this picture because it shows, you can see here the gallbladder, and then you can see that there are some gall stones stuck there. And you can actually have gallstones or stones in your liver and not just in the gallbladder itself. Now, you just think about it, if you get a stone stuck in there, how can your liver detoxify if it detoxifies through bile flow? We'll talk about all this a little bit more as we go on, but I really like that picture because it gives a good diagram to stick in your head about these stones and the importance. I have heard, and I've read some research on this, and my jury's still out on it, but several people have written that actually inside each of these stones is a parasite. And we're going to talk about parasites tonight too. So if you're squeamish, at one point you may need to look away from the screen because we're going to deal with some pretty yucky stuff. Okay, there's two distinct sources of blood supply to the liver, and this makes it very unique too. It gets oxygenated and unoxygenated blood. The oxygenated blood flows to the liver through the hepatic artery, and that feeds the liver itself. And then nutrient-rich blood flows into the liver from the intestines through the hepatic portal vein, and that's how the liver processes everything. And this is just a little diagram to kind of give you an idea. And if anybody wants these slides, just let me know. I do have them in PDF, and I can send them to you. So anyway, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. Okay, the liver regulates most chemical levels in the blood and excretes a product, as we mentioned, called bile. So there's the processing plant, the manufacturing plant. And that bile, as I said, helps to carry waste products away from the liver, and it also helps to emulsify fat in our diet. Since World War II, we have introduced over 89,000 new chemicals into our environment, and we're adding approximately 1,500 new ones every year. And our liver has to deal with all of these that we're exposed to. And of course, we're not necessarily exposed to all 89,000 or even all 1,500 new ones, but we're exposed to a lot. Babies, they've done studies on babies, newborn babies, and they've taken their cord blood right when they're born and done tests on it, and they found up to 300 chemicals in newborn babies' cord blood. Now, these newborn babies have not had a chance to be out in the environment, so where are they getting that? They're getting it from the mom. And so it's very, very important if you're contemplating pregnancy to really consider cleaning your liver. All of the blood leaving the stomach and intestines passes through the liver, and the liver processes this and breaks down, balances, creates nutrients. So there you have the manufacturing plant. This picture will kind of give you an idea of the blood supply, how all the liver and the stomach and the intestines and everything hooks up together. All right. the liver breaks down drugs. So any medication that you take, the liver has to deal with that. More than 500, and some actually, I need to update this because I just heard recently that it's close to 3,000 different functions that the liver is responsible for in our bodies. And this can help us understand why, and there's some places in the Bible that talk about being struck through with a dart through the liver. The liver is very core and central to our well-being and who we are. We talked about this just a little bit. The liver does produce bile. Which helps to carry away waste and break down fats in the small intestine. The liver also produces cholesterol. There's a lot of hype about cholesterol these days, and I won't divert too much on that. But the liver also makes special proteins to help carry fats throughout the body. It converts an excess of glucose into glycogen for storage. We mentioned that earlier. And then it can also convert that glycogen back into glucose later for energy. It regulates the blood levels of amino acids, which form the building blocks of proteins. And we're going to talk about building those proteins a little bit later. Okay, the liver also processes hemoglobin for distribution of its iron content. The liver does store iron. And you can read through this. These are just different things that, the liver actually does. Okay, when the liver, and I've mentioned this off and on, when the liver has broken down harmful substances, their byproducts are excreted into the bile or blood, and bile byproducts enter the intestine, and they leave the body through the stool. So, and also through the kidneys. So the liver gets rid of its toxins through the stool or through, the kidneys via the urine. Now, let's think about our bodies as a funnel. All of y'all have probably used a funnel at some point. And you can see this here. If you think about our bodies as though they were a funnel, think about this bottom part down here, and it's very fitting, as being our colon, and the top part being the rest of our body. Now, what is going to happen to whatever we're putting in that funnel if the bottom is plugged up? I can hear you answering me. It's going to overflow, right? Well, that is what happens with our bodies if we're constipated. So if your bowels are not open and moving well, everything is going to back up. Your lymph is going to back up and get dirty. Your blood is going to get dirty. Your lymphatics, which is the lymph supply in the brain, that's going to be toxic and end up with brain fog. When this happens, when you're constipated and the toxins back up into the liver, you are setting yourself up for all kinds of diseases, skin disorders and everything. And we'll talk about the different things that can happen as we go on. Okay, let's get into actual how to deal with this and what we need to do to support our liver. Obviously, as we just talked about, we need to make sure our bowels are moving. Now, we all know about Dr. Kellogg. He was brilliant. It's very unfortunate that he apostatized, but, he wrote a book on the health of the colon. And in that book, he has a book called Colon Hygiene. If you have not read that book, it's a very interesting read. It's been a while since I've read it, but I remember reading part of it. One of his coworkers was with him at Battle Creek Sand, and they said to him, Dr. Kellogg, they were standing looking out over the cafeteria where the patients were there having a meal. And the coworker looked at Dr. Kellogg and said, "What is wrong with all of these patients?" And he didn't miss a beat. He said, "Dirty bowels." And so if you're not having a bowel movement for every meal, you're constipated. If you're only having one bowel movement a day, you're plugged up. So you need to address that. Okay? Now, let's talk about these 3 phases of detoxification. There's 3 things that the liver does in getting rid of toxins from our body. And this is very simple again, so bear with me if you're higher educated. Okay, phase one is called activation. Now, let me back up just a little bit. Most of these toxins that we deal with, particularly the chemicals and pesticides and all these things and heavy metals, which is a whole nother ball of wax, these are what's called lipophilic, which means they're stored in fat. They love to be in fat. Our bodies store them in fat. And I've worked with a lot of people that have obesity and they're trying to lose weight and they just sort of hit a plateau and they just can't get the weight off. Well, a lot of times if I take these people through a detox, the weight will begin to fall off because the body puts those toxins in fat and says, I am not letting go of this fat because I've got too much garbage to deal with. So if you take out the garbage, the toxins, then the body will let go of the fat. So this first phase of detoxification that the liver goes through is called activation. And in this phase, toxins are actually made more dangerous. Well, why would the body do that? Well, in this phase, toxins become water soluble so that they can be eliminated through the bile or through the urine. So what supports this phase one activation phase of detoxification is, you can see it here, cruciferous vegetables, vitamin C, vitamin E, foods that are high in these things are very supportive. Now, I talk to a lot of people that get all gung-ho that they're going to do a detox, and they get this phase one activation going, but if you don't support phase two activation, you're just going to sit there and recirculate those toxins and make yourself very miserable. If you've heard of the Herxheimer reaction, that's called the detox reaction. And a lot of times that can be caused from reabsorbing these toxins and releasing too many toxins at a time that your liver just can't deal with it. Phase two is called neutralization or conjugation, some people call it. Again, cruciferous vegetables, you see that come up a lot. We're going to talk about cruciferous vegetables a little bit more. And glutathione, glutathione is our master antioxidant. We're going to talk about that a little bit more as we go on too. But in this phase two detoxification, that's where toxins are handcuffed or bound so that they're not reabsorbed. So if you're not doing something to support that phase of detoxification, if you're doing a detox, then you could get in trouble and just reabsorb those. And then the third phase is elimination, which means just what it says, elimination, eliminating these toxins through the urine, through the stool. So with that, you need to make sure that you have adequate water, particularly minerals like magnesium, so that your body can eliminate these things properly. Okay, we'll break these down a little bit more. Phase one activation, this is where, and this is getting a little bit technical, but there's a group of enzymes called the cytochrome P450 enzymes in the liver, and they are the ones that are responsible for breaking down these toxins and waste and actually rendering them more toxic so that they actually turn them into free radicals. By the way, let me just mention this here. We're going to talk about glyphosate, which you may know already is the chemical Roundup. We're going to spend some time on that, but the glyphosate, when it comes into the body, inhibits these enzymes, these cytochrome P450 enzymes. Okay. I like this little graphic here because a lot of people don't know what a free radical, what an antioxidant is. A free radical, if you've ever had a wheel weight come off of your car, a free radical, we have these electrons on the outer surface of these molecules in our body. And a free radical has lost an electron in its outer ring and it's unstable. And it's like if you lose a wheel weight on your car, your tires are no longer balanced and it's just kind of rough. Well, these free radicals are kind of like that. They've lost an electron and they're just going around in the body, bumping into everything and causing damage. Well, an antioxidant, the free radical wants to be stable, so he'll go and steal an electron from a healthy cell, and then that healthy cell then is not healthy anymore, and he becomes a free radical himself. but an antioxidant has an extra electron to donate. And I see the signature of God when I think about stuff like this with these antioxidants. Okay, conjugation is where the toxin is bound. This is neutralization again, where they're no longer a threat and they can be eliminated from the body. And then again, elimination is where we take it out. By the way, sweating is another very, very important. I think I remember reading in the Spirit of Prophecy that we're to exercise to the point of sweating every day. So sweating is very important. Okay, these 3 phases of detoxification have actually only been known since 2002, and so it's relatively new science here. So again, just recapping that. Phase 1 is activation. Cruciferous vegetables, very important with that. We also need healthy fats for our fat-soluble vitamins. A, D, E, and K are our fat-soluble vitamins. So, I don't necessarily adhere to a completely fat-free diet. I think we need the healthy fats found, in foods as they're grown. I don't believe in the use of free fats. Neutralization, which is conjugation, which is where they're bound. Again, cruciferous vegetables are important in that, and glutathione. And then phase 3 is elimination. Let's talk about this cruciferous vegetables just a minute. They contain something, and you can actually get this as a supplement, and I use it sometimes for people that I work with that have cancer. They contain a substance called indole-3 carbinol, which can help protect our DNA and cells and fight against cancer. Excuse me just a minute, I got to take a drink. Foods that are high in indole-3 carbinol are the cruciferous vegetables like cabbage, broccoli, kohlrabi, those foods, and also foods that are high in sulfur that have the sulforaphane. These are very cancer fighting. I use these a lot with patients that I help. Why are they called cruciferous? I looked this up, and these vegetables come from a family, from the Cruciferaceae family, I think is how you say it. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But that is Latin for cross-bearing, and that comes from the shape of their flowers. And some of the cruciferous vegetable flower bloom petals are more elongated, so they're more like a cross shape. Now, I've got to show you guys this, because when the Lord showed me this, I got so excited. I just love it when God shows his fingerprint in our bodies. We know about the sanctuary, and we know that when Jesus came to earth, he was in the outer court, and the cruciferous, the cross, phase 1 of the elimination of sin from our lives, made sin more toxic to Christ. Indeed, it took his life. And then phase 2 is when toxins are bound. And that is the holy place. When Christ covers our sin, they're bound there. We don't have to take them back. We can leave them bound there. And then phase 3, elimination. He is in the most holy place now in the process of eliminating sin. And so when I saw this, I just thought that was so, it just excited me to see God's fingerprint in our bodies. This is a quote right here from Dr. Ann Louise Gittleman. Some of you may be familiar with her, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically she says, in this day and age, because of all of the toxins that we're dealing with, the glyphosate, the nanoparticles of aluminum that are being sprayed, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. All of these things, even the EMF pollution, all these things are bombarding us. And she says here, we need 3 livers. Well, we don't have 3 livers. We only have 1. And thank God he made that liver so that it could regrow and regenerate itself. Okay. This is a passage from Counsels on Health, page 461. As I read this, I want you to look at the background picture And think about this. While appearing to the children of men as a great physician who can heal all their maladies, who is he? This is talking about Satan, correct? He will bring disease and disaster until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. Even now, he's at work. In accidents and calamities by sea and by land, in great conflagrations, in fierce tornadoes, in terrific hailstorms, in tempests, floods, cyclones, and tidal waves, and earthquakes, in every place and in 1,000 forms, Satan is exercising his power. He sweeps away the ripening harvest, and famine and distress follow. He imparts to the air a deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous. Somebody tell me what's in the background there.
Chemtrails.
Yes. In case somebody doesn't know, chemtrails are chemicals that are sprayed from airplanes. It's all these, and I'm looking at them out here. They're in our sky right now. And I'm going to talk a little bit. I think it's the next slide. Let me see. Okay, it's not the next slide, but let me just go ahead and touch on this. Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, I do not adhere to everything this man teaches, but he is brilliant and he does research a lot. He made this statement in the year 2019. He said within 8 to 10 years, 100% of us will have some form of dementia. Now, I pray to God that that's not true of Seventh-day Adventists with the health message. You know, we live in an environment that right now we have to be very proactive in keeping our bodies clean because we're surrounded by so many of these toxins. Dr. Stephanie Seneff made this statement: by the year 2025, 1 in 2 boys will be born on the autism spectrum. That's 50%. That's hard to wrap my mind around. Our liver is like an oil filter. You know, it's our body's filter. Now, I probably have some mechanics out there listening. You can spin out an oil filter from a car and spin a new one in and drain the oil in, which would probably be equivalent to the bile, and put fresh oil back in, but we can't do that with our body. I can't spin my liver out and spin a new one in. So I have to take care of the one that I have. I think that the next slide, yes, this is the slide that I wanted. Okay, this is not what I was thinking. I want to go back to, let's just go back up here, these chemtrails. Nanoparticles of aluminum are one of the things that's in chemtrails. And what is a nanoparticle? That's a particle that is so small that when you inhale it through your nose, it can cross the blood-brain barrier. And I think I have a slide on this a little bit further down, but at any rate, it's been a little bit since I've done this presentation. I'll come back to that because this is a very important point that we need to deal with. Pesticide chemicals with Roundup, parasites, and let me just touch on something with parasites real quick. I have worked with a lot of people that have candida that they just could not get rid of. And if we did a parasite detox, a lot of times they're able to get over the candida. Well, then I learned this from the guys at Microbe Formulas, that parasites accumulate heavy metals in their bodies. And candida, I'm not sure exactly how that works, but candida actually feeds on heavy metals is the way that I am remembering that right now. So there's a definite connection at any rate between candida, heavy metals, and parasites. And then, of course, we have the xenoestrogens in our environment, and we have heavy metals. Okay, I touched on the aluminum. Some of the other things that are being sprayed from these chemtrails, actually mold spores are being sprayed out. Barium, strontium. The reason it stays suspended for a while is they actually put plastic fibers in them to keep them suspended a little bit longer. Then we have the EMF, which again, I'm not going to get into. Food preservatives. I bought a box of crackers one time that I thought, am I going to have enough time to finish? Because I see I've already used up a lot of my time.
You're okay. You're okay. We'll
Okay.
let you go at least another 10 minutes.
Okay. At any rate, I bought this box of crackers and it looked pretty clean. It had rosemary extract in there. Well, rosemary extract is in there as a preservative. I looked it up, and it keeps bacteria from growing in the crackers, which means if I'm going to eat those crackers, it's going to do the same thing to the bacteria in my gut. And then, of course, medications we have to deal with. We have to deal with leaky gut and those toxins getting into the bloodstream, mold, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, and then genetically modified organisms are also things. And these things bioaccumulate. And here's my slide on the what's actually in, and we already kind of covered this, what's actually in the chemtrails. Let's talk about mold just a minute. Mold toxins really clog up the liver. Mold likes to be, it's lipophilic. It likes to be where there's a lot of fat. So it affects the liver, the brain, and the heart predominantly. Like I said earlier, with me, it triggered chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is where the innate or the immature, the early immune system turns on and doesn't turn off. You just get stuck in this inflammation cycle, and it doesn't turn off. It's way out of the scope of this talk. But at any rate, these mold toxins, if you have been exposed to mold, you really, really need to do a liver cleanse. Okay, let's talk about glyphosate a little bit. You can see the actual name of glyphosate up there, but I want you to notice particularly that last part, the glycine. Glycine is, it's actually an amino acid. It's the simplest, I think it's the simplest amino acid. So glyphosate contains glycine, and that's important. Glyphosate, which is Roundup, was first patented as a chelator, which means it pulls out minerals, because they used it in pipes, industrial pipes, to pull the minerals out and clean those pipes. But it's also been used as an antibiotic. Glyphosate is now found in soils, snow, rainwater worldwide. There's no such thing anywhere anymore as a truly organic garden, because glyphosate is coming down, it's being sprayed, it's coming down in the rain. And so we just have to pray and do the best that we can. This glyphosate just rips holes in your gut. It's really causes leaky gut. Autism, anencephaly. Anencephaly is when a baby is born with just the brain stem. They actually look like a monster almost. They don't have anything part of the brain that would make them function as a human. Okay, look at this in the red here. Among the most contaminated non-organic food sources are lentils and garbanzos. So if you're going to eat lentils and garbanzos, make sure that they are organic. And I think you need to eat 100% organic. Among the most heavily sprayed crops are wheat, barley, oats, canola, flax, peas, soybean, and sugarcane. Okay, let's talk a little bit about leaky gut. This represents the intestinal lining, and you can see there's one cell layer here, and this is very much simplified. But if we eat things that cause inflammation or that damage this gut lining, you can see up here on the top that all of these things that are not normally allowed to go through the gut membrane are now passing through into the bloodstream. This is going to trigger things like psoriasis, eczema, autoimmunity, as it did with me, all kinds of brain fog, all kinds of problems. Okay, so we need to work on healing our gut, and this is where what Dr. Joyce and Mercy are doing is very much a blessing. Dr. David Minkoff made this statement of he has a wellness center down in Florida. Of 1,000 or so people I have tested, 100% of them tested positive for glyphosate. So it is everywhere. Now, you remember I mentioned glutathione, which is our master antioxidant. Glutathione is made of glycine, cysteine, and glutamate. It's made in the liver. Glycine, as I said, is the most basic amino acid. But if glyphosate is in our body, it's tricky. I think the devil created this stuff. Glyphosate actually masquerades as glycine and tricks our body into using, instead of glycine, to using itself, glyphosate, into folding these proteins. And our proteins become misfolded. And our body has to tear it down and try to refold it. So you can see the necessity of trying to remove these things. I'm going to skip that slide right there. Okay, according to Dr. Don Huber, who is a leading expert on glyphosate and fulvic and humic minerals, he said that these are the 4 things right here that will remove glyphosate from the body. Fulvic and humic minerals, ACV stands for apple cider vinegar, which I don't use that, and sauerkraut juice. These are the 2. If you want to try to find these, I get mine from a place called kelp4less.com. Just find a soluble fulvic or humic. That's where I get mine from. I've been taking it for a couple years now. Okay, fulvic and humic minerals come from deep within the earth, and they're very rich sources of vitamins, minerals, and enzymes. They're capable of breaking down glyphosate into a harmless form. And I'm going to kind of speed it up just a little bit. Disorders of the liver, fatty liver. This is precancerous. Fatty liver is basically lots of grains, lots of sugar. That's where that's going to come from. Cancer, and then of course you have your hepatitis, and then even autoimmune hepatitis. Fatty liver actually is an abnormal accumulation of fat in liver cells due to factors such as obesity, diabetes, high cholesterol, and all these things. It can progress to fibrosis and cirrhosis, and as I said, even liver cancer. Lifestyle factors, we touched on this just a little bit. Again, I'm going through these quickly. If anybody wants these slides, I'll be happy to share them. Okay, I'm gonna skip through some. Okay, symptoms of liver problems. By the time you have symptoms, you are in trouble. It's fairly advanced. Brain fog and confusion, skin disorders such as psoriasis, eczema, acne, fatigue, foul breath odor. I have actually worked with patients whose breath odor smelled like stool because they were so toxic. If you see dark circles under the eyes, that can be an indicator of problems with the liver. Abdominal pain, gas, and bloating. And then what can we do? How can we care for our liver? Of course, the 8 laws of health, yes. Stress reduction, that's important because stress produces we produce cortisol, and that's very difficult for the liver to break down. Bitters. Bitter is better. Anything bitter in your diet, bitter greens, dandelion greens, peppermint is considered a bitter. Actually, lemon is even in this category. All these bitters will increase bile flow and thin that bile down. Our bile gets thick and sludgy and toxic. That's when we end up with gall stones, stones in the liver. And, we can that can plug up your bile flow so that you cannot detoxify. And there's a way to actually remove these stones very simply, or you can go have surgery for it, but I don't recommend that because it's very easy to do at home. Herbs that support the liver are dandelion and milk thistle. Oregon grapefruit is another very good one. Burdock root is a very good one. Selenium is you can get that from Brazil nuts. Good exercise. Healthy fats, and we're talking like omega-3 fatty acids particularly are very important. If I have like my cable here for my computer, I'm not sure if that's showing up, but if I lose the lining of that and the wire is exposed, it's going to short out and I might get shocked. Well, that's how important healthy fats are in our diet, because I think the brain neurons are like 75%. Oh yeah, here I have it here. The brain cell membranes are 75% fat. So healthy fats are very important. The flaxseed, the chia seed, avocados, healthy nuts, these things. A diet low in refined carbohydrates. We are very bready people. We like our breads and our oatmeal and our grains and all these things. The Bible says the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nation. So we really need to go more towards the vegetables and beans and all these types of things, because even eating a fruit heavy diet can contribute to some issues with the liver. And then, of course, eliminate parasites. I want to touch on that just a minute from my own personal experience. When I had the mold toxicity, and this was just this past summer, I was doing a lot of things to detox and try to recover from that. But at one point, I got really sick. I had a cytokine storm. I'm 100% sure that's what it was. I was so sick. I was throwing up, had a severe headache. I had a fever. I had chills. Everything hurt. I don't know what else to tell you. I thought I didn't think I was going to make it through the night at one point. My liver had actually swollen. It was very tender. It had swollen out from under my rib cage, and you could see it was just a big bulge around my rib cage. And I didn't think I was going to make it. And I asked the Lord, what is wrong with me? Father, please tell me what's wrong with me. I don't know what to do. And parasites kept coming to my mind. Well, I dismissed it because I had previously done a parasite detox, but it just wouldn't leave me. And so finally I said, Lord, I'm going to take this from you and I'm going to hit the parasite cleanse again. So I started taking mimosa pudica seed and clove oil. And after about 3 or 4 days, I began to pass parasites. And every time I would pass some parasites in my stool, I was a little better and a little better and a little better until finally my liver went down and everything was fine. And I have since learned that parasites can actually plug up your bile ducts. You can have so many in there, and they just like to hang out in the bile ducts. So that's something to consider. Okay, complex carbohydrates. We talked about that a little bit. Probiotics. I needed to take probiotics because I had taken the antibiotics. Some of these things I don't need to mention to you guys because you're already into the health message. So, all right. Here's the healthy fats: omega-3, chia, flax, avocado, walnuts, hemp seeds, purslane. Purslane is a wild edible. This is a picture of it right here. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, among wild edibles, it's one of the highest in omega-3 fatty acids. Okay, now I want to touch on this quick. Counsels on diet and foods. Sister White says here on page 103 that if we eat too much, it will clog our system and burden our liver. Well, researchers now know that our body needs a time of fasting. And what that does is it allows the liver to go into a state called autophagy. And what that is it's a time frame when the liver can clean house. It can clean up its own trash instead of having to deal with everything else we're putting in. And so researchers now kind of have it a little bit mixed up. They like you to skip breakfast and eat, just within a 6-hour time frame. But we know the most important meal is breakfast, and then lunch and 2 meals are better. So this is what we teach. Okay, I'm going to skip that. Okay, so let's kind of recap a little bit of what we've talked about. Bile flow and binding. If you're doing a detox and you're increasing your bile flow, then you need to take binders. I like to use charcoal. I like to use clay. Chlorella is a very good binder to use if you're detoxing heavy metals. It's very good to bind heavy metals. Charcoal will also do that. These are very important to bind up these toxins when we're detoxifying. Increase your bile flow by taking bitters and cruciferous vegetables. I'm going to skip some of these. Intermittent fasting allows the body to detox and then eliminate parasites. Okay. Alert here. I'm fixing to show some pictures real quick of parasites. So if you're grossed out by that, you might want to look away. Parasites, as I said, can clog the bile ducts. This is a colon that was actually removed, that it was so clogged up it had to be taken out. And I'll show you another one in just a minute. Flukes can live inside the liver, and these parasites can also cause digestive issues. This is an actual colon of a 3-year-old child that had to have a colectomy because he was obstructed. And that child will have a colostomy bag for the rest of his life. And that is so unnecessary. I mean, think about this. We worm our cats and our dogs and our horses and our cows and our sheep and all these things, but we don't worm ourselves. So parasite detoxing is a very, very vital, important thing that I think we really need to address, all of us. These are just some different types of parasites. Again, these pictures, I'll share with you if you want these slides. This is an actual tapeworm inside of a human intestine. And so, love your liver. Okay, every morning, warm water with lemon helps to prevent cellular oxidation in the liver. It helps to avoid the juice of a lemon squeezed in a glass of warm water. Helps to avoid the degeneration caused by high levels of toxins and fat cells. This is just a daily kind of tune-up detox that we can do. And I want to mention this. The world is so toxic now that it's not enough to do a yearly detox. It's not enough to do a quarterly detox. We need to live a lifestyle of detox. Okay? And again, you can read these slides and I will give them to you later. Okay, let me just read this. Lemon juice works by facilitating the drainage of stone-containing bile juices into the duodenum to keep them from accumulating. Let's move on. Herbs, we talked a little bit about this. Milk thistle, dandelion, ginger. Peppermint is actually considered a bitter. Oregon grape is considered a bitter. Oregon grape is not one that you should take on an ongoing basis, but you can use it during a detox. Garlic is very good to support the liver, and burdock root. When our inflammation is up, our detoxification pathways are down. Okay, so just remember that. Okay. And I think that's enough that I can sort of wrap it up on that. But one thing I want to stop with is this right here. God says he wishes above all things that we would prosper and be in health. Often, as we can see in this picture, we know what we ought to do, but our heart is pulling us this direction. And so we need to learn to live intelligently and to make intelligent decisions and look at what's on my fork, look at what's on my plate and ask, is this going to support my liver? Is this going to support detoxification, or is this going to add to my total body burden? So just take that and think about supporting your liver. I see some hands are raised, and I'm sorry that I went on for so long.
It's okay, Miss Danna. I thank you. This was such a wonderful, wonderful program. I had to move, and I thank Carlos for taking over. But we're going to go ahead and allow them to do about 10 minutes of questions. Is that okay with you?
That's fine, yes.
Okay, all righty. So, Carlos, are you there? I'm not sure who's there right now. Or maybe Fred?
I'm here.
All right, if Carlos isn't there, Fred's here.
Oh,
So
good.
we can tag team between both of us. Hey, Carlos, I'm glad you're there. Let's go ahead and a lot of hands are raising up, so we're going to ask everyone just go directly to your question, and so we can get through all the hands that are raised up right now, and then Sister Danna will give us a very quick and precise answer. All right, so I see Joseph's hand. I see that you're up. Go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead and unmute your microphone if you can, please. Okay, Joseph, let's try again. All right.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Okay, wonderful presentation. I appreciate it. I learned a lot about my liver, so I need to take care of it a lot better than I have been. Question: you mentioned that you use probiotics. I'm just wondering, what type of probiotics do you use?
Okay, I am hard of hearing and I could not understand him. Can somebody repeat his question for me?
Yes, you sure can. He said, what type of probiotics do you use?
I'll just show you. I've kind of run the gamut with this and tested a lot of different ones, but the one that has made the most difference for me is this one.
And for those who are on the phone, that says Mega Sportbiotic, and it's by Microbiome.
Microbiome Labs.
It's a probiotic supplement.
Yeah, Microbiome Labs.
Microbiome Labs. Thank you.
Probiotic. I'm sorry, I didn't realize some people were on the phone.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, for Janice. Janice, you are up. Go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Hi. What the parasites? Where do you get the parasites from? Because when you said that you had them and you lived a healthy lifestyle,
Right.
how do you get them if you get parasites?
That's a very good question. And I'm glad you asked that question because I should have addressed that because a lot of people think, well, that's just a third world country thing. I don't have to worry about that. Well, that's not true. If number one, if you have pets, you definitely have parasites. Okay. If you go now, this was pre-COVID statistic, but pre-COVID, 70% of shopping cart handles were contaminated with E. coli. Who knows where that comes from? Okay, that comes from stool. People are not washing their hands. If you touch an avocado in the grocery store, you're exposed to parasites. They're in the air that we breathe. So it used to be very intuitive for people to just always do a parasite cleanse every year. I mean, when my mom was coming up, they did it every spring. Why did we stop? Did we get suddenly all that clean? No, they're still there. If you're out working in the garden, if you're exposed to the produce section in the grocery store, if you're exposed to other people, if you're exposed to animals, that's where they come from. Dr. Todd Watts, this is his test, and everybody can do this right now. This is his test to see if you have parasites. You take these two fingers and you put them right here on your wrist. If you feel a pulse, then you have parasites. So.
No, I like that. I like that. You are so funny. Sister Danna, you are so funny. You said if you feel a pulse, you have parasites. Okay, so this is such a wonderful presentation that you've given us so much. I mean, there's so many people raising their hands. I don't know if we're going to get to all of them because we're already on 650, you guys.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think? If they promise to ask their questions really quickly, and Sister Danna, if you can answer, okay. Alrighty. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'm going to fly through these. So let's go. Kareem, go ahead and ask.
Thank you. Could you just repeat the herbs that you used for the parasite cleanse? You said Mimosa pudica and something else?
It's Mimosa pudica seed. It has to be the seed. Be very careful where you get it from. If I could go and get it, I could get a link. We are our ministry is affiliate with Mimosa pudica with Macro Formulas, and it's kind of a love-hate relationship for me because it's a little bit expensive. I think it's like $40 a bottle now. There's 180 capsules in there. And it's the cleanest that I've found, especially for vegetarians because it's in a vegetarian capsule. It's pure Mimosa pudica seed with no fillers. And that's really been tough to find. And they're really the best company that I have found to get them from. We do have an affiliate link, but you're welcome to just go straight to their website and order. Microbe Formulas is where I get that. And I probably don't need to go into too much more since it's Sabbath, but at any rate, that's the best that I have found. And then while I'm on that, let me just address this because I used to use just clove oil. And let me explain. The way the Mimosa pudica seed works is it kind of stuns the adult parasites and then it suffocates them. Nothing gets used to being suffocated, so it they can't be immune to it. But as they're dying, they pass a lot of eggs. And that was what happened to me when I told you I had previously done a parasite detox. Was I didn't take anything to kill the eggs, because the Mimosa pudica will not kill the eggs. It kills the adult parasites. And so you need to take something to kill the eggs. And I didn't do that the first time I did the parasite detox, and I reinfested myself big time. Don't do that. Okay. So now what I do, and you just go find one that you're happy with. I don't have one that I necessarily recommend. You want to get a tincture that has wormwood, black walnut hull, and clove. Wormwood, black walnut hull, and clove. Wormwood, black walnut hull, and clove. Those three. Maybe somebody could type that in the chat if anybody else maybe missed it. Somebody that's real fast at typing. Wormwood, black walnut hull, and clove. That will kill the eggs. Okay.
Black walnut what?
Yeah, black walnut hull.
Hull?
Yeah, Hull. Yeah, Hull.
Or give
Black walnut hull, and then clove.
Okay, Danna,
All right.
how good is if you're using like castor oil packs over the liver? Would that help as well for detoxing the liver?
Oh yeah, that's very good for the liver. Absolutely, yeah. Castor oil packs, charcoal packs, very good. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's go with Cheryl Mike, real quick.
Hello, thank you, sister, for your excellent presentation. I would like to know, since in the phase 1 and 2, you are using cruciferous veggies, what about people who cannot use cruciferous veggies? For example, people with thyroid problems, that they say you shouldn't eat cruciferous vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
What should they use instead?
Okay, that's a good question. I won't get on my hobby horse about that, but it actually, and Mayman Wilson, I think, would back me up on this. If the cruciferous vegetables are lightly steamed, they're not really harmful to the thyroid, but I'm not going to die on that hill. But there's other things that you can do, like taking glutathione supplementation. Liposomal glutathione is probably the best form. That would be very supportive to the liver during that phase. Vitamin C, vitamin E, garlic, any sulfur-based food, garlic and onions, very supportive. You can actually make like a broth, just cook onions and garlic together and make a broth and drink that. But glutathione supplementation is probably the most powerful, aside from the cruciferous vegetables. That and vitamin C.
Excellent. Thank you. GA. Ask your question, please. Happy Sabbath.
Thank you. I was wondering about the bile. I do not have a gallbladder. I have not had a gallbladder for 30 years. And so how does that affect me? I know it has, but I want to know, how does that affect me not having a place where my bile is created?
Well, basically, how the body deals with that when somebody has their gallbladder removed is you just kind of have a steady trickle. And it is kind of metabolically expensive to make bile. So you're not going to be able, like if you did a liver flush, which is another way, I talked about getting stones out of the liver and the gallbladder and stuff. You may not have the volume of bile that you need. You may not break down your foods as easily. You may actually need to take some digestive support, something that's going to support the production of bile, because you're having to make it all the time because you can't store it. So does that answer the question?
GA, if you can raise your hand again, hopefully that does answer the question. We're going to go ahead and go with Promise Geist. Go ahead and unmute your microphone. All right, there we go.
Hi.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
You did mention, Sister Danna, about yeah. You did mention, Sister Danna, about the bread, and that these, we shouldn't be into the bread, and I totally agree. I know that I guess maybe it's more so because of the wheat. I'm not sure if that's what it is, but I do use einkorn wheat, and because it's a ancient wheat, it's a better wheat, the way it's grown. How do you feel about the effects of wheat on the liver, and also the fact I don't like to use yeast? I'm trying to stay away from that. I have immunoglobulin deficiency disorder, and so this is where I'm like, I got to do this with the liver. But how do you feel about doing the sourdough? I do sourdough with the einkorn. I know that council tells us that there shouldn't be a taint of sour in our bread and so forth. Is that the same thing? I've heard both sides from many people, and I'm just trying to get a better understanding of that. How do you feel about that? Because I know there's a level of fermentation. Yeah, there's a level of fermentation that is okay. It's not to alcohol. So if you can tell me what you feel about that and how that affects the liver.
Right.
Miss Danna, can we hold 1 second? Thank you, Promise. It's so good to hear your voice. We need to ask everyone to stop emailing putting your email in the chat. If you email Healthline, we'll work with Sister Danna to get it to you guys, okay? So please email healthline@gmail.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm not sure that I'm the best person to address that question as far as the sourdough. I have used the starter, before that you feed it, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I've used that before, but I'm to the point now, I occasionally will use food grade hydrogen peroxide to make bread. I'm actually kind of shifting over to Mercy Ballard's autoimmune diet. So I'm probably not the best person to address that so much. Now, as far as the ancient grains and the effect on the liver, there was a study done, I think it was Oxenba, if I'm not mistaken. It was in Sweden. And when they had really good years and a lot of, crops and everything, they fed the grains to the animals. But when they had lean years, they ate the grains. And when they ate the grains, it affected their health. I am of the personal opinion that we as a people really eat too much grain. Now, as far as the ancient grains, I have used them. I do have some spelt. I do have some kamut. Will I eat it again? No, because I'm gluten-free. My husband can probably tolerate that at some point, but not me. So I'm sorry. I just really don't feel that I'm the best one to address that. I think it'd be better to talk to Mercy Ballard about that.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer there. Yeah, I see that you have your hand raised. Naya, going once, going twice. Let's go with Kimberly. Kimberly, go ahead and unmute your microphone. Like I said, I'm going to fly through these. Okay, go ahead, Kimberly.
Yeah.
Ask a question.
Yes. Hello. I just wanted to thank her for her presentation. It really helped me. I did want to know, I know you said to email for the slides and videos, but do you do consults at all for like other related issues?
Yes, I do.
Okay. How would one contact you?
I guess, I don't know. I mean, I'm not even looking at the chat right now. Can I?
I would recommend just sending it. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to recommend just send that question to Healthline.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Then
hopefully we can get that over to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. we make that bridge there.
But
Thanks, Kimberly.
if she would like to give an email address, we can do that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
You want to
Our
give
our ministry is called Closure for Jesus, CLOSURE for Jesus. It's all, and if you connect that all together with no spaces, Closure for Jesus at yahoo.com.
Amen. Amen. All right.
Is that
Naya,
the
see.
for or the actual word for?
Oh, thanks, Carlos.
Sorry.
Say that again.
Was that closure for as in the number 4 or FOR?
FOR, Closure for Jesus. It's all words, all letters.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos, for putting that in there. All right, Naya, you want to go ahead and ask your question real quick? Thanks.
Yes, hi. You mentioned glutathione because I also have thyroid issues. You stated that something about glutathione is powerful aside from eating the cruciferous vegetables. Should we not eat the vegetables, or is it okay to eat them with the glutathione?
Well, glutathione is a supplement that you can get, and I recommend getting a liposomal form. That means it's encased in fat, and that's a whole science and a whole nother lecture. So I'm not going to get into that, but the liposomal glutathione is a supplement that you can take. But yes, now I'm not going to tell somebody whose doctor has said don't eat cruciferous vegetables to go and eat them, but what I have found is that if they're lightly cooked and you don't just eat them meal after meal after meal, but you do include them in your diet, I have not found it to be an issue.
Excellent, excellent. Nova, you're up. Otherwise, there you go. What's your question?
Hi, good afternoon. My question is about omega-3s and purslane. How does that pertain to getting rid of parasites and or cleansing of the blood?
Well, we have to have healthy fats in order to have our fat-soluble vitamins. It just supports the overall system. It's not that it's specific to, parasite cleanse.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Jalissa, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, my question is, how does one address Aspergilis in the blood?
I'll tell you, my protocol that I did was so comprehensive. It was really trial and error, because Aspergilis was one of the things that I had to deal with. Now, I know that there are many very powerful herbs that can deal with this. And can you hand me the Usnia? Do y'all know what Usnia is? My husband's, it's on the...
No.
I did a video. We have a YouTube channel. It's under my name. And I did a video on this stuff right here. And I'm sorry, I apologize to those who are on the phone who can't see it. But y'all that are on the phone, go to my YouTube channel. It's under Danna Gesellchen. And look up my video called Usnia Lichen. Usnia this is what it is. It just looks like some kind of wiry looking plant. This is a very powerful antibiotic. And if I'd have known about this when I had the Rocky Mountain spotted fever, this is nature's doxycycline. Very powerful. It's also antifungal. So it will help with any kind of mold or anything in the body, in the blood. It helped with the candida, all that. So just go watch that video.
That's excellent. That's excellent. I'm actually looking at that and I'm like, where did you get that from? The plant itself.
It's on the video.
It's on the video. All right, we'll go to the video.
Okay.
All right. Let's go with is it Sharon Phillips?
Hi, Dana. How are you?
Good, you?
I'm great, thanks. So I'm just looking at all of the vitamins that you mentioned, and you mentioned some minerals. Have you ever heard of the the name slips me. It's like a mineral supplement that you get that it's like salt water, but it's like a mineral supplement. Have you ever heard of it? It's I don't remember the name, but you can get like the mineral.
like
Sorry?
something like CALM, CALM. Is that what you're?
Yeah, yes. But it's,
I have heard of that. I think they have some. I don't remember what's in there, but it seems like there was something in there that I mean, if that was all I could get, I would use it. But I have found that the fulvic and the humic minerals from kelp4less.com, they do fine for me. I do take a liquid magnesium called Remag.
Excellent, excellent. All right, SD, I see you have a question. Go ahead and mute yourself. If not, we're going to go on to, there we go. Ask your question real quick, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to know, does liver issues present different with children? And what would be your recommendation for dealing with a liver cleanse for the young ones?
You just have to scale it back. I mean, their systems are more delicate than ours. I just talked to somebody that's on here about liver issues with her children, and basically we just kind of scale back everything that we do for an adult. You know, they can manifest the same ways with skin issues. It's a lot of skin issues with kids, you know, because, you know, we're all born with basically a bucket, and we can handle so many toxins, and when our toxic bucket gets full, it's going to overflow and we're going to have some symptoms. And so whether it's skin issues or, you know, whatever, it's really kind of the same with children. They just are probably going to manifest a little bit sooner than an adult would.
Excellent. Thank you. We've got Berth's iPad. Go ahead and ask your question, please.
Yes, I would like to know. I was thinking about doing a liver flush. What would you recommend for the liver flush?
That is a whole presentation, and
okay.
But what I do, you've probably heard of drinking the olive oil with the grapefruit juice. That's what we do. We take malic acid for about a week. Malic acid softens any stones that are there so that they don't get lodged. And then, you know, there's different ways to do this. A lot of people just do apple juice or whatever, but what we have found very effective is to do the malic acid for about a week, and then we do the Epsom salt and grapefruit juice. And I like to use grapefruit juice because it helps to open the bile ducts a little bit better. And if you add tangerine essential oil or just a drop of tangerine essential oil, you really get a good reaction and get those bile ducts opened up. And then at night we'll drink the olive oil with the juice, and then the next morning we'll take some more doses of grapefruit juice with Epsom salts, and then you'll be surprised at how many stones come out. A lot of times it takes a little bit of time for those stones to migrate, especially if they're deep in the liver and there's stones that look different. And there's a whole, you know, a lot of people will argue with me till they're blue in the face about this, but I've just seen too many benefits to not believe that it works.
Excellent. Thank you. Moto, I've been asking for you to unmute your microphone, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to River Jordan. River Jordan, you have a question? River Jordan, going. Okay,
Yes,
let's go to
hi.
Kimberly. Kimberly.
Hi, can you hear me?
Okay. Yep, we sure can. Go
Fine.
ahead
Thank
and
you so
quickly
much.
answer your question.
Okay. So I have a situation where I have a child with autism and who goes into severe rages and psychosis and has been diagnosed with a liver disorder where the liver enzymes will go into the thousands, and no one seems to know how to take care of her, including myself. And also she has a mitochondrial disorder that the cells are not functioning well. My question is, how can we help her? What can we do? Who knows how to take care of her?
Okay, I think that question is outside of the scope of just a simple answer. So if you want to contact me later, you know, maybe we can talk about that. That's a very complex situation.
Indeed. Indeed. Kimberly, if you can
Hi,
go ahead
hi,
and
Dana.
unmute. There you go. Ask your question, please.
Yeah, going back to the infestation of worms. I know that worms would normally hatch at different intervals. Do we bombard the body every single day for a period of time before you can actually get rid of them? And how do you support the body nutritionally during that period?
That is a really good question. I'm glad you asked that because anybody like me who has had a chronic health issue, you know, I shared a little of what I've been through. It can take up to 2 years and even more to get rid of your parasites. And the reason for that is because when your body is a really good host for parasites, like when you're sick, they really take a foothold. I mean, they hide in every nook and cranny and they really dig in. So it's going to take some time. For a relatively healthy person, it's going to take up to, you know, about 90 days, 3 to maybe 6 months. Now, the mimosa pudica taken on an ongoing basis, you know, that can get expensive. So there's a technique that you can do of taking it monthly in what's called the full moon challenge or the full moon cleanse. Parasites are more active around the full moon. That's when they mate. And that's when it's easier because they're moving around, they're more active and stuff. That's when it's easier to kill them. And so what I am doing right now is what I mentioned, the full moon challenge, where the day before full moon, the day of full moon, and the day after full moon, I'll take 5 capsules twice a day. And that sounds like a lot, but this is a challenge. Okay. This is a real intense cleanse. And even as much parasite cleansing as I have done over the last almost year, I just, you know, we just had a full moon. I think it was last week, if I'm not mistaken. And I did
last week.
Yes. And I'm still passing parasites. So.
Wow.
Something to think about.
There you go. Lisa, I'm going to go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead and try it again. I saw you on mute.
Hi, good night. Good evening. Well, I'm in Trinidad, so our Sabbath is over. So my question is, can someone who had a gallbladder removal do a liver flush? And could you give me the name again of the liquid magnesium that you say you take or you recommend, and the name of that herb, the doxycycline or whatever it's called, please? Thank you.
This is Usnia, U-S-N-E-A, Usnia. And I do have a video. The young man who was on our channel, can you post a link for that video in the chat so people can see that?
I see it right now. Usnia Lichen.
Yeah, Usnia Lichen. If you
I'll put that in the chat
in the chat. Yeah, that's the lichen. And then the magnesium that I like is called Remag. Capital R, small E, capital M-A-G. Remag. And then you had another question. What was your other one? Oh, can you do a liver flush? Okay. You can.
Yes.
If you will email me at closureforjesus@yahoo.com, I have a book, and that book will explain how to do a liver flush if you don't have a gallbladder.
Amen. All right. I have to unmute myself first. Wow. We're going to go with the last 3 questions. Okay. Shelley, go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for your presentation. Just had a question. What would you recommend for someone that has stage 4 colorectal cancer that spread to the liver?
That's outside of the scope of this too, but I tell you, I would contact me. there's a lot you can do. Contact me. It's just too much to cover in this.
Understand. And that's closureforjesus@yahoo.com. Closureforjesus@yahoo.com. That's how you contact her. Let's go with, I think that's Regina, and then we're close it off with Naya. Regina, if you can go ahead and unmute. There you go. Ask your question.
Hey, good evening. I'm happy to be there, and I thank God for this ministry because I've been learning since like 2 to 4 weeks. My question is, how do you know that you're still passing parasite? Can you see them? Can you see them? Because I did some parasite screening for me and for my family. We didn't see anything, so I don't know if you said that you're still passing parasite. Can you see them? My second question is, my daughter is constipated and she had some light spot in her face. And I remember we're from the Caribbean, and I remember that my grandmother used to say, whenever you have some light, whenever a child has these light spots in her skin, it's parasites related. So can you help me? How do you know that you're passing them? Do you think that my daughter has them? Because that's what my grandma would say. If you have light spot in your skin, face, and everywhere, you have parasites. Thank you. Have a blessed one. Jesus loves you. Thank you very much.
Yes, I've never heard that. I don't know, but I do know that the skin is it'll tell on you. It will tell what's going on inside. Let me just address the can you see them question. About 30% will be visible with your eye in your stool, but often you will not see it unless you excavate a little bit. Go outside and get a stick and pull your stool apart. Can I tell your story? Tell my husband's story. He gave it to me. He didn't believe me. He didn't believe that, that this was really a thing. And he had what appeared to be a normal movement, and he went and got a stick and pulled it apart, and it was solid parasites. So it may look like a normal poop, but if you don't check, you may not see it. Now, one of the ways because I've learned my body, and I think probably this would be true for most people. When I have a movement and I sense that, there probably was some parasites in there, often I will come behind that bowel movement and do an enema. And that's when you really see them, because they will float on top of the commode. You'll see it. We're getting really graphic here, aren't we?
Yeah, that's pretty graphic. I couldn't even re-explain that offline.
It's real.
But it's true. It's real. You got to do it.
And I'll tell you, if those things, let me tell you, if they get in your bile ducts and plug you up, you'll wish you had this talk. I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's real. All right, Naya, ask your question real quick. You are returned.
My hands stay freezing cold. Is that an indication of something?
Usually, unless you're not dressing properly, usually that is kind of pointing to thyroid type stuff.
All right. And our last question before we hand it back over to Sister Ro. Moto, go ahead and ask your question. Moto, going once. I see your hand up.
Oh, okay. I was trying to unmute. Okay, so I wanted to in reference to the parasite, and a good medicine, you can get it in actually liquid or capsule, would be it's by Nature's Answer, and it is, and Danna made mention of the 3 herbs, which would be the black walnut, wormwood, and clove. The combination, it's all 3 are in the Nature's Answer
very good
parasite cleanse. Hello?
Very good.
Okay, so all 3. Now, this particular one that I'm making mention of, they have liquid, and you also have the capsule, but the capsule is not powder, It is liquid in a gel, in a capsule, and it's a V cap, so vegetarians can take it. It's not a gel cap. You could get it on Amazon. I have done a parasite presentation, and when I did my presentation and did my research, that was actually one of the best. I've used it. I've shared it with others, and children from 2 up can take it, because I've also shared it with mothers that had children. A child, there was a baby. She was actually, I think, 3 years old, and she had parasite, and it helped. However, pregnant mothers should not take it. And if you have a liver issue, if you're battling liver problems, you should not take it. So that is a very good one that I know works, and it takes care of both the parasite eggs and the active parasite in the body. And there is another question that was.
All right, you might have to unmute yourself again. I heard you had a question. We were actually looking for a question there. So let's go ahead and go with Arlene there.
Did it go back on mute?
Yeah, I went back on mute. We were actually waiting for your question to show up.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you didn't hear anything I said then?
We heard a lot what you said, and then you said you had another, and then that's where it got cut off.
Okay.
So what is your question?
It's actually another, it's some more information. In reference to the last question pertaining to the cold hands, she might want to have her doctor check for lupus.
Check for what?
Anemia.
Lupus disorder.
Anemia? Okay.
Lupus. Okay.
Lupus disorder.
Lupus
Yes.
disorder.
Yes.
Yep. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go with, I know some hands have raised in the chat. We are trying to close this down. So, Sister Danna, what is your time?
It's 7:25 here. I can stay a few more minutes. I'm getting a little weary.
Yeah, and we don't want to wear out the saints here, especially Sister that's doing a health message here. And so let's just take 2 more questions. Those who haven't been on. I know Sister Veronica, you haven't been on, so I'm going to unmute you right now. Sister Veronica, are you there?
I wanted to know, how do you know that you have gotten all of them out, or you don't? You just keep doing it every full moon for the rest of your life?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I don't think that you have to do it every full moon for the rest of your life, but neither do I think that you're ever going to really get rid of all of them. And that's not necessarily the goal. The goal really is just to prevent infestation. And I believe that once our bodies are as healthy as we can make them in the present environment, God is going to have to preserve us in this environment. But we need to do our part to cooperate with Him. If we make our bodies as inhospitable as possible to parasites, we're not going to become infested again. Okay? And then at that point, probably a yearly or maybe twice a year parasite cleanse would be sufficient.
Excellent. Now, those who keep on raising their hands, we're closing. So I'm going to close out with Nicole, and then I'm going to hand it over to Carlos or Sister Ro. I just see she came onto the line. Let's go ahead with Nicole, and that is it. What is your question?
Yes, I was just wondering, is there a link between this and mental health issues?
Okay, I need her question repeated. I could not hear her.
Is there a connection between this and mental health issues? Is that your question, Nicole?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's very quick. That's very brief. Yes. All right. Let's go ahead and lower that. And iPhone, you are it. And then we're handing it back over. iPhone, ask your question, please.
Yes, thank you so much. I have a question, please, Sister Danna, about the enema. Is it a simple water enema, or you put herbs or something else? Because some people say it's a good practice, some have other idea about it. Can you give us some quickly information about how we have to take that enema, please? Thank you.
Yes, a warm water enema is sufficient if you're just doing it to flush out parasites. Now, I'm going to open a can of worms, forgive my pun, but a lot of people, you probably know about the coffee enema. Now, I do not, under any terms, recommend drinking coffee, but I can show you a passage where Sister White used it as a medicine. And if you're using it in that way, and the lady who asked the question about the cancer, the liver cancer, I would definitely use coffee enemas for someone with liver cancer. The coffee enema, what that does is it increases bile flow and it dilates those bile ducts. Now, if you have an aversion to using the coffee enema, which is fine, you can use dandelion leaf, and that can have a similar effect. It's not as powerful, but it's a similar effect. But yes, you can use herb. Burdock is another herb that you can use in an enema. You can just make a tea out of it and use it in the enema. It's very supportive for the liver.